Welcome to Nutty Buddy Sports.
Let's go on to our last part of our podcast. We're going to talk about some fake trades. So we have some names up here that we'll briefly discuss in a couple teams. So let's start with Jerami Grant. So let me ask you this. Do you think that Jerami Grant is going to be moved before the deadline?
From what I looked at like before our podcast, no.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Pistons rightfully are just, they're holding out for 2 first-round picks, and I don't think a team is going to give it up. And from what I was looking at, a few teams were worried that he wants the ball a lot still. He doesn't want to go back to the Denver days where he kind of just sat and was not a bit player. He was an important player, but didn't get to run some offense. I think as of right now, a few teams are scared off by that, but I think he fits in with a lot of teams. I don't know if he wants to go back to fitting in with a team playing a role. I don't know if he's there yet.
Yeah, so I would agree. Like as far as like some teams being nervous about that, what I would say is now that teams know what he can do, I would feel it would be a little silly of them to trade for him and be like, yeah, now go sit in the corner on offense, when you think of a team, I think of like the Cleveland Cavaliers back when LeBron, Love, and Kyrie all got theirs, right? Like they were all okay. I mean, Love wasn't as good as he was in Minnesota because he was asked to change his entire game and but he still, I think he averaged 20 points. So it's like you still can get your points. You're still going to get there's enough ball to go around for that. So it just really depends on the team he goes to. But I can understand maybe a little of his fear or team's fear of that as well. If he is traded, what team would you think he'd be a good fit on right now that you'd like to see him traded to?
A team I think he would be awesome on, but I don't think he would be happy with, would be the Hawks. I think Trae Young, he takes the ball too much. A lot of those other guys don't get to do much, and when he does, it's Bogdanovich who gets to do it. But I think team would be deadly with him. His defense, his shooting, along with Hunter, to kind of cover up for Trae Young. But I don't think he would be happy there in the long run, because I think in that role he would really go back to a stand in the corner, your 4th or 5th down the line between John Collins and all those guys. So that would be a really good team, though. I think his best bet would probably be something like the Jazz now, with Ingles out. But I don't know if the Jazz are going to give up 2 picks with Ingles out. It seems like some of their team is kind of falling apart, their chemistry and that, but
yeah,
he's in that ilk.
Yeah, so for like the Jazz, for instance, I don't like, as a Piston fan, I don't see anything I want. Like Ingles, I get like that the Pistons want picks, but I'm also like, I would almost rather have prospects, maybe a prospect and a pick. You know what I'm saying? Like instead of 2 random first round picks where you just don't know who they're going to be and what they're going to be, I think
the Jazz picks would have to be out a couple of years, which makes them more valuable. I mean, that team might fall apart in a couple, but then you're kicking the can, which if Cade Cunningham comes along, it would be awesome to build the team. And then in 2 or 3 years, you got a top 10 pick, maybe, when the Jazz fall apart. But you're kind of delaying turning in the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now Cade's going to lose for 3 or 4 years and circle back to all these other players. Is he going to want to stay in 3 or 4 years when you can't win more than 25 games for your 4th straight year?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I agree. And that's the thing is, like, I do agree with like what we were talking about before. Like, don't rush a rebuild, but don't also put it off, because if you have like potential star players on your team, you still have to surround them with talent that they like. So it's interesting you mentioned the Atlanta Hawks because before Cam Reddish was traded, I was like, the Hawks should trade for Jerami Grant and give Cam Reddish and another prospect and a pick, and that should be enough. But they didn't do that. Instead, the Knicks got him, and they won't even play him. I guess he only played 4 out of the 8 games, which I don't know what the Knicks are doing. But so speaking of that was one team I thought that might be a good trade for Jerami Grant is the Knicks, because they're falling apart, right? They sign these people who aren't fitting their team well, like Kemba Walker, Fournier, Alex Burke. They signed them all the deals, and so I would assume they might want to get off some of that salary. They don't play Obi Toppin, they don't play Cam Reddish that much, and I'm just like, well, why wouldn't they just be like, hey, Jerami Grant, he's 26, he's got 2 more years on his deal. That could be an interesting trade target, because he would definitely be, if not the first, at least the second option, maybe behind Randall, as far as a scorer. So what do you think of that type of trade? So the trade that I actually had was Burks, Walker, and Toppin, and then maybe some picks, a pick maybe for Jerami Grant.
I agree the Knicks should do it. I think the Knicks' biggest problem is their coach. What's his name?
Tom Thibodeau.
Thibodeau.
Yeah.
He was great last year. He's perfect for taking a veteran team, piecing it together for a year or two, but they got exposed in the playoffs. And like you said, you give up a first round pick, it's protected, but for Cam Reddish, and he doesn't want to play him. And there's been reports that the front office is kind of upset that he's not playing Cam Reddish. So now they're going to try to dump these guys to make him play Cam Reddish, when the Knicks are what you don't want the Pistons to turn into, where you're just trying to be, hey, I want to be 500. I think he'd be good on the Knicks. I don't know that, like Obi Toppin, he has potential. I don't know that the Pistons would be overly excited about that. I think they want something maybe a little more premium and a pick, or just if the Knicks were willing to give up. I'm sure if the Knicks were willing to give up a first round pick and a couple good seconds, I think they would do it, because I think they would see the Knicks might have a short runway here before they have to do something drastic. But he's a team that a player the Knicks should go after, or work to. But I think they're going to big game hunt, and they're going to try to keep their books clean for Dame, or even Ben Simmons, or Zion. I think they're going to go big game hunting. I think what they're going to do, instead of trying to piece it together.
Yeah, that could be the case, but that's where I feel like Jerami Grant could add to that, because he's 20 million, right? So like, if you're gonna, and he's only 2 years, so if you get him, he can be added into a sign and trade for the Knicks, or if you wait 2 years out, his contract's up, and his contract is up before like Toppins and Burks is, for instance.
I think you're giving the Knicks too much credit, though.
Right. I agree.
I don't think they're going to think. I don't think they're looking around the corner that way. I think they're trying to win now. I think they're going to give up on. I think their front office is going to rightly do something tomorrow or Thursday to force the hand to get Cam Reddish. You got to figure out what you have. But I don't know if maybe this summer is something they would do. I think this season they're going to let it roll.
You're probably right. I was just thinking, as far as like for me, as somebody like team builds on 2K or whatever, I just feel like it works out for both teams. I like the running aspect of Obi Toppins along with Cade Cunningham, because they're missing sort of that kind of guy that he can be paired with. In fact, that's what I'm hoping they kind of go after in the draft, is a big, a taller rim runner that can space the floor a little bit. But anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think the Pistons would probably say no right now, knowing that they could get that over the summer.
That's a good point. Yeah, probably.
They'll know their draft pick, and if they're high enough and they know they can get the guy they want to be that player, then they would just, look for something else for Grant. Whereas right now, I mean, if you trade for Toppin and you end up with a top 2 pick, then you might be looking to trade Toppin again, or you kind of bind yourself up. Whereas right now, I think they'll just, if they don't get what they want, the same teams will want Jerami Grant in the summer when they strike out on whoever else they're trying to get.
Yeah, that's a great point. A couple others. We won't spend too much longer on Jerami Grant, but Chicago Bulls, obviously there was some rumors that the Bulls were interested in Jerami Grant. Now the hurdle is that you have Levine and you have DeRozan. So there's no way that those two guys are better with the ball than Grant is, as good as Grant is with the ball, can be with the ball. But so I did make a trade because there was rumors that they might be interested. And the trade that I came up with as a Piston fan, you could tell me that I'm being a little bit of a homer here. Absolutely. But I was thinking, like, what would I be happy with? I have Jones, who just is for salary purpose, and then Patrick Williams, who's out for the season, and then a pick for Jerami Grant. So it's not 2 first-round picks, just a pick. Patrick Williams, to me, he counts as a first-round pick. So I don't like, so anyway. So what did you think of that trade if the Bulls made that one, or the Pistons?
If I was the Pistons, that's a trade I would do. If I was the Bulls, the Bulls seem to be high on Patrick Williams. I think teams do this with all their play. Harrison Barnes is another one on here. There's a lot of players around the league. If Patrick Williams could become Jerami Grant in his career, the Bulls would be happy.
Right.
Or if he became a Harrison Barnes, but played a little better defense, that's what the Bulls would be hoping. Sure, you're taking on more salary because Patrick Williams is cheap for the Bulls right now. But if you're the Bulls and you think you can win it this year, this is probably their window before any of these other teams reload. So if you want to do it, not saying they should or shouldn't, if you can get Jerami Grant for that, I wouldn't give up Patrick Williams for Harrison Barnes, but for Jerami Grant and a protected pick, and you throw in the salary, I don't think it's a crazy trade. I'm sure the Bulls wouldn't do it. They seem to love Patrick Williams, but that's the kind of trade where you just filled in a gap. He can small ball. You can put him on Giannis. Like, the Bulls' biggest problem is they have no one to cover Giannis, and that's going to be their shortfall. I think they had no one to cover Embiid. They have no one to cover wings. If I was the Bulls and I thought I could do it this year, I would do that deal.
Yeah, see, I'm with you, and I felt like I was being a little homerish, but my thing is, like, so if Patrick Williams, you tell the Bulls his career winds up like Jerami Grant, you'd be like, awesome, that's great, right? Now you have an opportunity to get Jerami Grant. The East right now, although I think me and you are both believers in the Bucks and they'll get it together or whatever, the East is wide open other than the Bucks maybe, right? Like, because Brooklyn's a mess. The 76ers outside of Embiid, you're not really scared of any of those players. And really, you're missing, like you mentioned, that piece to guard Kevin Durant, guard Giannis. And it's not like he's going to stop him, but nobody can, but he's going to make those guys work. So to me, this is a window to win a championship, and you still have young players like Levine. He's only like 25. Lonzo Ball, you just picked up. So you still have young players to build around. So to me, I just feel like this trade, again, like, benefits both teams. And I would love to see Patrick Williams play with Cade Cunningham, to be honest, too. So,
and not everyone feels this way. I have a couple friends who don't, but I think the case is like with the Raptors, like with the Bucks last year. If you are good enough to compete, it just takes a rolled ankle, a foot on the line, and you can win a title. Right? The Raptors were good and got boat raced by LeBron for 3 or 4 years. Got Kawhi, you got your title, you're good for a decade.
Right.
The Bucks last year, same thing. They went all in with Holiday, overpaid, but banners fly forever. If you're the Bulls, you're obviously good enough. Playoffs, we'll see. DeRozan has been shaky in the playoffs, but even so, you have Levine. Hopefully Lonzo Ball's back. Caruso's back. You put someone like Jerami Grant in there, and Giannis rolls his ankle or turns his knee, but miraculously plays a week or two later. But if Giannis is out, they're not beating the Bulls. right? The Bulls would have too much with Jerami Grant.
Right.
I just think, and that's not like they've already given up most of their future picks to get the guys they have. And I always think if you collect guys like they have and it doesn't work, Jerami Grant's going to have value. Lonzo Ball has value. Alex Caruso has value. So if
Correct.
you don't like it after 2 years, ship them off and get your pick back.
No, that is an excellent point. Okay. I and then I had one more. Memphis. Do you think Memphis is at all willing to trade for Jerami Grant? Because that was the other team. I had Anderson and Culver, but they had 3 first-round picks this year. So it would and the Pistons want 2. So I was thinking in their mindset, would that be a trade? Anderson, he's got an expiring. Culver, he's a young player. He's on a $6 million deal. And then you get 2 first-round picks from Memphis. What do you think of that trade for both teams?
I don't think Memphis would do it. I think Memphis is crossing their fingers that Jaylen Brown wants out of Boston.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. A couple of the pods I've listened to that, there's been rumblings that Jaylen Brown isn't thrilled about everything in Boston. And I think the Grizzlies move is this summer. If there's any inkling of it, they are going to dump all those picks, match salary, and slot him in next to Ja Morant. And, I think that's their guy they're going to go for. I just don't think Jerami Grant giving up 2 picks. Like, I don't think the Celtics would then view Jerami Grant as anything huge for them. I think the Celtics would take those picks and players, whatever they can get, and move them around if they have to get rid of Jaylen Brown. But I think that the Grizzlies are going to go all in for Jaylen Brown if possible this summer. And if not, the other guys on this list, I think they would go after Miles Turner, but I don't think he's going to get traded now. But
yeah, no. So it's interesting because sort of like, to me, it's a little bit like the Bulls, like where I feel like Memphis's team is almost there. Like I could actually even see them coming out of the West because I don't know how good the West is. Like I think they're like all really good, but I don't think there's a team up there that I'd be like, oh yeah, the Suns are going to beat everybody or whatever, So it's sort of interesting because I feel like Grant could help their team, but I also feel like their chemistry is so good that I don't know if I want to mess with it either. So I'm going to say for like, as a Piston fan, there's other trades I'd rather have, but even for Memphis side, I don't know if I would touch that.
Yeah, was his name Avery, the big Grizzlies fan from your other pod?
Yeah, Avery. Yep.
Yeah. I agree. The Grizzlies are awesome. They're like Bucks Southeast. They're assistant coach and everything. The only hesitation I have with the Grizzlies is maybe doing that trade now is Ja Morant is awesome, but he scares me. When he goes up for all those dunks, like I just you never want someone to get injured, but some of those guys you hope it doesn't turn into a Derrick Rose.
Yes.
So I see the point of, again, just like, who are we talking about? Just the Bulls. Just do it now. You might have a chance. But I think if you're the Grizzlies and you're trying to take the long haul, and if there's a possibility for Jaylen Brown, I think you take it. And if your consolation is Jerami Grant this summer, I think they could still get Jerami Grant too. So
yeah, that's another great point, is they could just wait it out until the summer, and then if Jaylen Brown's not coming, then they can make a trade with those 3 first-round picks. Yeah, good point. So Jerami Grant, where would you like to see Jerami Grant wind up? And do you think he gets traded before the deadline or in the offseason? Please let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you'd like to hear me and Clint talk about other fake trades or even trades that have already occurred, click on the link to the podcast below. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.